Chapter 11. The Legend of Studio 8H. Well, isn't that special? I think to myself as I enter the opulent rotunda that houses the hairpiece collection in the archives annex of 30 Rockefeller Plaza. It's Monday morning, and I'm getting a little backstage tour before the pitch meeting on the 17th floor. I've already strolled through the library of costumes, as well as the props parlor, where I took the Bassomatic for a spin, strummed Wayne Campbell's Stratocaster, and dinged the cowbell. So now I'm inside of the wig ward, getting stared down by thousands of faceless gold busts with familiar hairdos, from Rosanna Dana to Colleen Rafferty, and everything in between. Somewhere in the middle I'm drawn toward a stunning late 80s model mullet. "Do you remember that one?" asks the quavering voice of the wig warden. "I think so. Looks like a facsimile of the finest head of hair that ever graced the Weekend Update desk." "That's right," the wig warden continues quaveringly. "It's the one Dana wore when he'd come on as Dennis. Ah yes, the dueling Dennises bit. I remember it well. Would you like to try it on?" She pulls out a long skeleton key she wears on a necklace. "No one has opened this case in a very long time," explains the warden, as she struggles with the lock. "Here, I'll help you put it on." "What a beautifully made hairpiece," I say. "We spare no expense here," says the wig warden. "Not only is each one made with 100% human hair, but with authentic human scalps as well." That does sound expensive, I think, as I admire myself in the three-sided mirror. "It suits you," she says, running her bony, shaking fingers through the feathery locks. She's right. It fits me like a glove, like a long, luxuriously feathered head glove. "Think I could borrow this for a day or two?" I ask. "As you wish," says the warden. "You're the host. But consider yourself warned. The Miller mullet may have a certain power within it." "Sure, lady, I get it. Everyone knows it's a real cutthroat scene around here. But I've come too far to be intimidated by your show business shibboleths." The lorgnette that's been ushering me around pops her head in to tell me it's time to go. If you've never heard of the lorgnettes, Mr. Michael's team of personal assistants, just picture Robert Palmer's Addicted to Love backup bimbos, except blonde and minus the guitars. On our way to the elevators, we cross back through the iconic Grand Central Station set, where I'll be delivering the opening monologue in just 5.5 days. It's a lot to take in. One of my earliest memories is sneaking out of my bedroom one night to watch the show. The first skit had Eddie Murphy dressed up like my musical hero, Prince, dancing around a hot tub.
Mitch, I'm sorry to cut in here, but I've got a little historical correction for the record.
"What?"
"Well, according to what I'm seeing here, looks like Murphy was portraying James Brown, not Prince. The sketch, which is the preferred term to skit, by the way, was called James Brown's Celebrity Hot Tub Party."
"I'm pretty sure it was Prince. Don't believe everything you read on Dunsopedia."
"Well, it's a pretty famous sketch, and it's definitely James Brown. I just thought it might be a good idea to adhere to the historical record to the extent possible."
"Look, Tiberius, this chapter is already going to be too long and complicated for us to quibble over these kinds of details. I need to get to the part about the man that hired Eddie Murphy."
"You mean woman?"
"What?"
"Eddie Murphy was actually hired by Jean Dumenia."
Who's telling the story here anyway? What does the cover art say? Is it the Darberius Futureling story? Because I could have sworn it was the Mitch Maloney story. So cut me some slack, okay? Call it comedic fabulous license or whatever, but for now, Michael's hired Murphy. Murphy did Prince, and it's skit, not sketch. Got it?
"Okay, if you say so, Mitch."
So here I am, in the center of that famous stage, which is already getting dressed up for Halloween before a single skit has been written. Cobwebs are being draped over the old Yankee Stadium chairs, and rubber bats are being dangled from the ceiling. Leaning up against one of the rafters in the dimly lit audience section, I see a life-size dummy wearing what looks like a zoot suit, but it's missing the head. I hope that thing's a work in progress, I say to the lorgnette, 'cause considering what went down at the anniversary show, this seems like a bad time for a headless horseman gag. "Sorry, what are we talking about now?" asks the lorgnette. And sure enough, when I look back, it isn't there. Good. Hopefully they've taken it back to the props parlor to screw on the noggin. The lorgnette glances down at her flashing dunce phone and reminds me that Mr. Michaels and the others are waiting for us on the 17th floor. As I squeeze my way into the crowded office, I hear someone saying my words, the whole cheesy pleasers jag from my first record live at the Lavender Shallot. It's the show's current top copycat in residence, James Austin Johnson, who I'll just call Jadge to save you some time. And I gotta admit, his take is pretty close to the real Maloney. Everyone quiets down when they see me, and Jadge spins around with egg on his face, presumably from some unrelated omelet mishap. "Not bad, son," I say, "only make sure you get the sideways smile at the end right." "Thanks for the invitation, Unky Lorne," I say to the man at the head of the big table. He's famously hard to read, of course, but I can tell he's impressed that I know the proper way to address him. "Note to self," I say, pulling out the mini tape recorder I've borrowed from the prop parlor. "Remember to thank Colin Jost for the insider info on what to call Mr. Michaels.
Endnote 1.
He asks if I can share something about what I bring to the show. Let me tell you a little story. Long ago, probably before some of you were even born, while your predecessors were yucking it up at Secondary City or the Dirtlings or the uptight Citizens Briquette, there was a pack of performers in the dankest, darkest corner of the Pacific Northwest. And what started out as just another mid-sized university campus skit troupe evolved into a pack of high-concept, multidisciplinary and performance artists. And we weren't fueled by cocaine and marijuana like the so-called not ready for primetime players. We were fueled by ideas like Dada and Fluxus and Artaud and also Dexedrine and magic mushrooms and nitrous oxide and reefer and whiskey. But we never did any cocaine. Almost ever. Despite the fact that I'm pretty sure the sound engineer could have hooked me up if he wanted to. So my question to you is, who do I talk to about getting me some cocaine? I waggle my eyebrows at Punky Johnson, but she just shrugs her shoulders like, why would I be looking at her? Oh, right. I'm sure you've never been mistaken for a drug dealer before, Punky. Well, maybe that's why this show isn't what it used to be. Maybe it's because you've lost your edge. My motto with my old crew was, safety is our last priority. You realize that's not what we do here, right, Mitch? That whole neo-avant-garde sort of thing, right? Well, Sprockets came pretty close, but I get it. This place is all about the skits. Don't worry, I dumbed it down for you people, and here's what I got. I pull out my notebook. Unfrozen Caveman Clip-Clop Influencer. Hans and Franz and Mitch. Toonces, the Zuber-driving cat. And that's just what I jotted down in my armored bus as my chauffeur was looking for parking. What do you think? Well, something I've noticed over the years is that the cast that was on when you were in high school is invariably the best one for you. I know exactly where this is going, so I have to cut him off. Actually, what was that one interview you did where you didn't say that? But the funny thing about that theory is that the cast that was on when I was in high school just so happens to be the actual best one. Hartman, Hooks, Lovitz and Meadows and Nealon and Cleghorn. Not to mention, I say as I run my fingers through my luxurious wig hair, I think I've proven my point. Unky Lorne tells me it might be good to listen to some of the writers' ideas. No need, Unky Lorne. I trust them. I think the show works best when the host doesn't try to interfere too much. So trust your instincts. Like Tina Fey said, do your thing and don't care if they like it.
Endnote 2.
But I get the feeling that the crew is still a little gun-shy. Or maybe samurai sword-shy is more accurate in this case. I feel like it's my job as the host to help Unky Lorne rally the troops. So I tell them I know. You're intimidated by my success. But don't let it get to you. Believe me, your world frightens and confuses me. But this isn't criminal law, folks. Bob Odenkirk figured out the formula for successful skit writing way back when I was in high school, as a matter of fact. 1. Write for the ladies. 2. Something topical. 3. Read the news. 4. One set, no films. We'll make an exception here for Please Don't Destroy, obviously. 5. Loud and or recurring character.
Endnote 3.
Oh, and I'd love it if you could write me up a Jeopardy. Thanks. Okay, so it's head writer Streeter Seidel. So, do you want us to follow those guidelines or just do our thing like Tina Fey said? The point is, I have faith in you and believe that between the 18 regular cast members, plus the 6 featured players, the dozens of segment producers and directors, an art department roughly the size of the Russian army, and 39 Ivy League educated professional comedy skit writers, there's enough talent in this room to pull it off. I have a question, says Bowen Yang. Whatever happened to that group? The what? Your performance art group. Whatever happened to it? Oh, well, we got banned from campus after a guy set himself on fire during a performance. What's that? Asks Yang, as if he didn't hear me the first time. We got banned from campus after a guy set himself on fire during a performance. Why? I don't want to talk about it anymore. The point is, I've learned my lesson from my dalliances with the avant-garde. The less I'm involved, the better. So guess what, folks? That's the plan, and I am outta here. My next stop is down on the 6th floor for a taping of The Tonight Show where Jost is filling in for Fallon. When the thunderous applause eventually dies down and I'm sitting on the couch, before I even get to mentioning my new charity, Jost asks me to comment on Gaffigan's new book, Mr. Blubberbutt, where he claims my legendary Cheesy Pleasers bit was a rip-off of his old Hot Pockets bit. First off, I can't believe I'm defending myself on the topic of plagiarism from the former head writer of you-know-what. Secondly, here's how it works when it comes to joke stealing. When other comics steal my bits, that's plagiarism, okay? But when I do it, that's homage. You don't see Paula Poundstone griping about Seinfeld's Pop-Tart bit, do you? And now Gaffigan thinks he invented convenience food comedy? Pocket-shaped foods are as much a staple of Western comedy as they are a staple of the Western diet. But I can't really comment because I've already used up my endnotes for this chapter. Jost looks at me confused. You know Jost, the comedic rule of threes. Didn't they teach you anything at Harvard? But the rule of threes doesn't mean everything you do has to be limited to 3, he says. It's just a basic joke form because it's the most efficient way to establish and then break a pattern. I know that. You think I don't know that? Now he's getting on my nerves, so I tell him I'd be happy to comment on his aptly titled memoir, and ask him how his disgusting botsfly infection that he took up a whole chapter discussing in nauseating detail is coming along.
Endnote 4.
Tuesday night, I'm having dinner with Unky Lorne and a few of his friends at the hottest restaurant in Midtown. And this place has everything. But I'm not here to review restaurants, so let's get to the name dropping. Which, as I'm explaining to Lady Gaga, isn't something I usually like to get into. But when in Rome, right? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar leans down and says, "Wait a minute. I thought this place was called Spazo." Everyone smiles elegantly and chuckles casually, except for the Dalai Lama, whose hyuk-hyuk snorting turns every A-lister's heads towards our table. Dua Lapita almost chokes on an oyster from the seafood tower she's sharing with Denzel Washington and Katie Couric. At another table, I see Florence Griffith Joyner, Skrillex, and billionaire heiress influence socialite twin sisters Violet and Victoria Dunce almost spill their white rhino Hornschlager shots. Too bad my lady friend Kara decided to stay in Lipstick City, I think, as I glance at a table in the corner where Amy Schneider, John McEnroe, and both Patti Smiths are having mezcal margaritas with an avocado hummus platter. That better be one hell of a mystery novel she's working on. Gaga wants to know if I have any intel on what happened to Jimmy Fallon. Rehab, of course. Someplace out in Rancho Cucamonga. And from what I heard, it wasn't exactly voluntary either. The network bigwigs didn't like all the jokes about the Tom Brady murder trial. "Speaking of big wigs," says Bowser from Sha-Na-Na, "I like what you've got going up on top, Maloney." "Oh, you mean Dennis?" I say as I stroke the wig I'm now simply referring to as Dennis. "Timeless look," says Adele with a wink. "How did the read-through at 30 Rockefeller Center go today, Mitch?" I decide not to comment on the fact that there's no trace of a Cockney accent. It's too bad so many of these show business big shots feel the need to construct an identity for public consumption. "Oh, you know how it goes, Adele. Pretty boring and long, just like Chris Kattan describes it in his memoir."
Endnote 5.
Meghan Markle von Furstenberg asks me if I'm going to finish my miso-glazed sunchokes. "Help yourself," I say as I hand over the plate. Let's just say I've been consuming mass quantities of pizza since I've been in town. "Oh, really? Who's your pizza guy?" asks Amal Clooney Kardashian. "My pizza guy? You know, your slice harvester. You're not just wandering around Manhattan going into random pizza places willy-nilly, are you?" "You should talk to Lorne about it," says Megan. "Lorne's got the best slice harvester in the city." "You don't say." I glance back over to the other end of the table, to the man who's invited me here, Unky Lorne himself, chatting with Andre 3000 and Delta Burke. Jim Brewer really nailed it when he described him as completely out of touch with how uncool he had become, and with no recollection of how cool he once was.
Endnote 6.
He's also too feeble to lift a fork to his mouth, apparently, but luckily he's got the Lornettes for that sort of drudgery. One of them is rubbing his shoulders while another slices up and feeds him a foie gras and caviar spring roll. Yinghui Malmsteen asks, "Where did you come from anyway, Mitch? How did you become the biggest name in comedy in such a short period of time? I thought it took comedians 10 years before things start to click into place. Isn't that what everyone says?" Or, "If your name's Mitch Maloney," I tell him in a quiet and conspiratorial kind of way, "you make a deal. A Faustian-type deal." "Wait a minute," asks Timothy Chalamet. "Are you being serious? Did you literally sell your soul to the devil? For real? And it worked? Because that's definitely not how I did it." He laughs awkwardly, as does everyone at the table. "Me neither," says Megan. "Definitely not me," says Patti LuPone. Judge Judy does a funny whistle and stares at the ceiling. Well, my demonic pact was technically not with the devil exactly. I went with a lesser-known off-brand demon called Beelzebub, for contractual loophole reasons. "Smart," says Nardwar. "Well played," as he swirls his glass of Mouton Rothschild in my direction. And am I ever glad I did? You can get away with anything when everyone finds you hilarious because of your diabolical pact. "Do you consider yourself to be a Satanist?" asks the Dalai Lama. "Sure I do, Dolly, but only in the most literal sense. This isn't about free speech or trying to freak out the Christians or something. I simply offered my soul to Beelzebub in exchange for unparalleled wealth and fame, and so far it's been working out pretty well." I still can't tell if you're being serious, says Gaga. I know. That's part of the deal. Nobody can ever tell. It's like the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Or, hopefully, a get-out-of-hell-free card. You haven't seen or heard anything upsetting around 8H, have you? Asks Chalamet. Because I've heard the last couple of hosts pulled out for unexplained and very mysterious reasons. That's right, adds Sofia Vergara. Also accentless when the cameras aren't rolling, apparently. I heard Snooki and LeBron just left midweek without saying a word, but Guy Fieri said he saw something very upsetting. But you haven't? There's a tussle at the host station near the door. Looks like it's James Corden trying to big shot his way inside. But Kip Winger and Big Daddy Kane help the doorman make sure that doesn't happen. The conversation takes a pause, and then Megan says, "It was such a shock, and everyone knows what tragic event is being referred to." "Really?" says Amal. "'Cause I thought that Longfellow had Lone Wolf Incel written all over him." "True," says Megan, "but I mean specifically the whole decapitation thing. You don't see that live on air too often." As I walk into 8H on Wednesday afternoon, I notice we're down a few soldiers. Larcy Shookline, head of the show's talent department and Unky Lorne's right hand, explains that Ego has dropped out because of the Woody Allen movie I was in, and Heidi is out because of my Lithuanian chupacabra alter ego. Oh well, it's not like they're the stars of the show or anything, right? We still got Jadge. I look over my left shoulder to Jadge, who's mimicking my hand gestures and facial expressions. We still got Sherman. Sarah Sherman nods with the deranged vacancy of a jack-in-the-box clown. We still got Mikey, right, Mikey? Mikey has a big painted-on smile, but I notice his forehead is covered in sweat. Our eyes lock. Right, Mikey? Finally, he breaks. He grabs his water bottle and messenger bag and says, "Sorry, Unky Lorne," under his breath as he heads for the door. "Well, what's important is the writing, right?" "Unfortunately," says Larcy, "we're also missing half of the writing staff for various reasons. Celeste Yim is upset about your endorsement deal with Dunsberger. Claire O'Kane doesn't like that you toured with Chappelle. Rosebud Baker says she heard you were in league with the literal devil." Okay, fine. We can get through this. Come on, you chuckleheads. The good news is that instead of the 3+ hours I'd expected the read-through to take, based on Rachel Dratch's book,
Endnotes 7,
we get through all the skits in around 40 minutes, and they are not great. Unky Lorne looks at me. "Well, for the first time in 50 years, we're running short. We're going to have to pad it out." "Sounds like we'll need some good old-fashioned strategery," I say. "Whatever else happens, we're not canceling the show this week," says Unky Lorne. We agree to reconvene in his office to put the pieces we do have into some sort of order and take it from there. Halfway up to the 17th floor, the elevator starts shaking, and then it stops altogether. The lights flicker, and now it's black except for a little red safety light in the corner. Then the doors open up, except at half speed, and there's no ding. And it's dark out there, too, except a bunch of smoke comes floating in my way. And I think if Tom Hanks in a pumpkin suit starts bugging out in my face right now, someone's getting comido defendued. And then the smoke clears away, enough for me to see there is someone standing there, but it's no David F. Pumpkins. It's that creepy dummy I saw a few pages ago. Except I can see it a lot more clear now, and it's even sicker than I thought. It's got on a long pinstripe magenta zoot suit, and under his arm is what looks like the noggin of none other than Kenan Thompson, in character as DeAndre Cole. I pride myself on having a dark sense of humor, but this is as sick as it comes. Although I have to admit the attention to detail is top shelf. Of course, the propsmen here are among the best in the business, so I would expect nothing less. But the blood trickling from the neck, and even the expression on Keenan's disembodied head, that classic wide-eyed double take that says, even in death, he has to be the center of attention. It looks like he's actually looking at me dead in the eyes. There's even a powerful stench of decay. Why would they even bother with a scented dummy for a TV show? Just when I think I can't take it anymore, the doors finally close, and as I head back up to Unky Lorne's office, I decide not to mention to the guy how the art department's been trying to spook me. He's been through enough. Just 3 more days, I think. Thursday around noon, I go in to tape a promo with the musical guest. I see the sets getting put together just like Daryl Hammond described it in his book.
Endnote 8.
There are set carpenters and dressers milling around everywhere. But suddenly, as I'm walking through the set of a haunted castle, everything flickers, goes black, then lights come in through the cellophane windows, lighting up a message that looks like it's written in blood. It says, "Get out now while you can, or your soul shall be trapped within 8H forevermore. This message is for you, Mitch Maloney, and is not a trick or prank of any kind. Threateningly yours, the Headless Thompson." And then the lights flicker back on. The crew is back to work, and the message is gone. "You guys are good," I yell for everyone in the studio to hear. "I don't know how you did that." Everyone looks at me like I'm nuts, but I know it's part of the gag. Nobody commits to the bit like the 8H crew. Then executive producer Steve Higgins comes over and tells me that the video shoot is a no-go because the musical guest is canceled because he was offended by my appearance on Al Franken's podcast, Franken, Sense, and Mirth. He feels like I misnomered him. Wait a minute, Higgins. Are we talking about Bat Dig Bun Dummy? No, Mitch, that's the problem. It's Dat Big Dumb Baby. That's what I said. Dig dat big duty. Never mind, says Higgins, but Mr. Michaels wants to see you in his office. Fine, but this time I'm taking the stairs. When I get there, Unky Lorne is in a silk robe. One of the Lornettes is painting his portrait on an easel, and another is on her knees in front of him, giving him the full treatment, if you know what I mean. One of those fancy pedicures with the French-tipped toenails and everything. I tell him I'm sorry to hear Rat Fig Pun Rummy has pulled out of the show. He looks confused until the Lornette in charge of the popcorn bucket whispers into his ear. "Oh, you mean the musical guest? Yes, it's too bad, you know, because he's very hot right now. A real chart topper. And I think it would have made for a really good show." Unky Lorne, I'm happy to step up. As you probably know, I play the harmonica sometimes in my act. No, says Unky Lorne. We're all very aware of your harmonica playing, and something about the air quotes he's making rubs me the wrong way. That won't be necessary. We'll make some calls, and I'm sure well, let's just say it's good to have talented friends. Are you gonna call Bowser, I ask? You think you can hook up a Sha-Na-Na reunion? We can do better than that. I think we're going to call Paul. Paul? Yes, I think we can get Paul in time, and Paul doesn't disappoint. You know what I mean? I actually don't know for sure what he means, but I figure either way it should be exciting. Friday afternoon at 8H is supposed to be the big rehearsal day, as I know from reading Jay Moore's book.
Endnote 9.
But I'm having a tough time leaving my dressing room. The fact is, between the cast boycotts and the macabre pranks and threats, I'm feeling kind of demoralized. But there's something else that's bumming me out even more than that, as I'm explaining to Steve Higgins. Why isn't Unky Lorne's pizza guy returning my calls? I've got a fever, Higgins, and the only prescription is more pizza. Mr. Michaels has been very clear about this, Mitch. He says you've been spending too much time eating pizza and not enough time rehearsing sketches. But I want to keep it as fresh as possible, don't you get it? How hard can it be to read off of some cue cards? Why don't you just let Jadge stand in for me, I ask, and turn to Jadge, who's sitting in the corner, mirroring my every move. See? He's even got his own Dennis wig now. That's another thing Mr. Michaels is upset about, Mitch. He really wants you to lose the hairpiece. He thinks viewers will find it very distracting. Don't get me started. Don't even get me started on the wig. I've never looked better in my life, and something about Dennis here makes me feel safe, makes me feel strong. Mitch, if this is about hair loss, I'm sure we can have the hair department whip up something a little more subtle. No way. Dennis stays. Dennis stays, echoes Jadge. See? He's completely nailing me. So let him fill in and let me go get some slices with Unky Lorne's pizza guy. Mitch, if you want access to Mr. Michael's slice harvester, you've got to give him something. Please, Mitch. The show needs you. Okay. I'll come out there, but give me a couple of minutes. Alone, please. I gesture towards Jadge. Higgins takes him by the arm and leads him out. Thanks, Mitch. We're all counting on you. Yeah. Which part didn't you understand? The ba or the bye? Bye, I say, and hear Jadge echoing it faintly as the door closes behind them. I look at my face in the mirror. You can do this, Maloney. You're good enough. You're smart enough. And then right in front of my eyes, the glass of the mirror goes dark and my reflection fades away, and in its place is the bug-eyed expression of Kenan Thompson's detached head. Aw, man, I'm all out of patience, I scream, and I grab the marble bust of Unky Lorne that has been placed in my dressing room and throw it through the mirror, which shatters easily, and I can see the headless body just standing there while a fog machine sputters in the corner. I climb up over the dressing table and into what appears to be an old supply closet and approach the Headless Thompson. Who are you? I demand to know. Who are you really? He shuffles around like he's not sure what direction to go, and then weakly tosses the head at me. I catch it. It's a prop, of course. A very well-made, latex-covered styrofoam prop. The headless figure stumbles blindly as I grab it by the lapels. I hear a feeble, muffled voice from the center of the chest, begging, "Please don't hurt me. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I rip the costume apart, and who do I find inside but Kyle Mooney? What are you doing here? He's so nervous and awkward that it's hard to make out a coherent explanation. You haven't even been part of the cast for years. He says he didn't know where to go or what to do, so he's been living in the hidden passages of 8H and surviving off the uneaten scraps from craft services. Did Unky Lorne tell you to do this? No, says Mooney. It was the wig warden that made me do it. On the other side of the shattered mirror, Steve Higgins has entered the dressing room to see what the commotion is about. In answer, I toss him the head of DeAndre Cole. This breaking news just in, Higgins. Kenan Thompson is still dead. So it's really happening, much to everyone's surprise, including my own. We're actually live from New York. although technically we've just moved into Sunday morning, as the musical guest is being wheeled out for the first performance. Unky Lorne's musical friend isn't the first or the second Paul that I had pictured. In fact, I'm not sure if this one makes it into the top 10 musical Pauls. But anyone who can still sing all the notes on Puff the Magic Dragon from the inside of an iron lung deserves some credit. As far as I'm concerned, things couldn't be going any better. My innovative improvisational meta-commentary is just what the show needed. The live audience is in hysterics, and I'm as excited as a little girl. Unfortunately, the young cast members don't really understand or appreciate what I'm up to. Devin Walker is sobbing uncontrollably in a corner. Chloe Feynman called me a disgrace and punched a hole through a set. And now Andrew Dismukes is begging me to stop ad-libbing. He says it's throwing off the rest of the cast. I could try to explain to them that I'm actually pulling off something that innovative geniuses like Charles Grodin and Frank Zappa merely attempted years earlier, breaking the fourth wall to comment on the mechanics of the show live as it airs. But the shtick actually works better because they're mad at me. So, instead of wasting my time trying to give the kids a history lesson, I take a second to try to tie up the loose ends of the whole Headless Thompson hoax. I got a question for you, Dismukes. Why do you think the Wig Warden would want to sabotage the show? The Wig Warden? He asks. Yeah, you know, the old creep that watches over the wigs in the archive annex. He says he doesn't know what I'm talking about, but last he heard, someone named Jody was the head of the hair department, and he's never heard of a Wig Warden. Well, that doesn't make any sense now, does it? Tell me what you know, Dismukes. I pull out a switchblade I found in the pocket of an NBC page jacket in the Library of Costumes. What makes you think I won't cut you? I ask him. Suddenly, two strong pairs of hands grab me from behind. It's the Lornettes, decked out in spandex skeleton suits and poofy white wigs. Unky Lorne comes around the corner wearing a rotunda replica of Hanks's old pumpkin suit. We really wanted this to work out, Mitch, but I'm afraid it just... Do you know what I mean? The thing about the show is, we don't go on because the show's ready, and all babies are ugly unless they're your baby, and the show only really works when all of the pieces are... Do you know what I mean? Nope, it's not gonna work on me, 'cause I've read all the books, and I know your weakness. You can't actually fire anyone. You just drive people crazy until they feel like they have to leave before they lose it completely. Janine Garofalo really nailed it. You rule on the theory that a house divided is a house more easily controlled.
Endnote 10.
Well, it's not gonna work with me because I'm Mitch Maloney, damn it, and I refuse to be Garofalo'd. He says not everyone who comes to the show is such a good fit, and that some people have certain emotional needs that aren't going to be fulfilled by hosting a variety show. The show can't be your family, you understand? We're not your mother. You got that right, Cha-Cha. And you're not God either. You're not some powerful sorcerer just because you can build a haunted castle or the surface of Mars or anything else you can dream up in just a couple of days. Because you know what you can't do? Wrap things up. The skits almost never come to a satisfying conclusion. Obviously, you don't know how or when to retire. And now, I'm not sure how to wrap up this chapter either. Suddenly, Unky Lorne's glass of wine transforms into a long obsidian staff with a glowing glass sphere with purple smoke swirling around inside it. He says, Ye shall not pass beyond this mark, O Beelzebub, so saith Lipowitz the necromancer. And he drags his big stick across the floor, and a curtain of flames rises up between me and the set. Now I am really starting to get what Dana Carvey meant about being terrified of Unky Lorne's power.
Endnote 11.
I grab one of Lorne's headshots that are scattered everywhere, and walk right out onto the Weekend Update set, which has been completely redesigned for Sarah Sherman to be a nightmare carnival concept with doll parts and a world map made of lunch meat. And I stand behind Molly Kearney, who's doing some over-the-top trick-or-treater bit. I stare straight into the camera and start to tear the glossy 8x10 of Unky Lorne in half from the top down. Over to the side, he's waving his big stick around like he's drawing something in the air, and suddenly, everything stops moving. "Come forth, mighty Mephistopheles," he says. "Ye are released from thy earthly anchor to do battle for thy master." I hear a gushing, gurgling squeal and turn to see Sarah Sherman opening her mouth wider and wider and unhinging her jaw until it splits all the way open and a big tentacle slithers out of the open throat as her skin and skeleton and outfit all peel off together like a candy bar wrapper and fall to the floor, and in her place is a giant glowing blue-green eel with wasp wings and Sherman's face, except with big, scaly, telescoping eyes, like a chameleon's, and pointy teeth that go all the way around her drooling, hoop-shaped mouth. I look over to the other side of the update desk, and right where Larcy Shookline was standing a minute ago, I see the wig warden. Then Steve Higgins points at her and yells, "Hey, who let Jean Dumanian in the building?" And I look into the audience, and everyone out there has insect faces with antennae sprouting out of their heads, and their mouths are dripping and masticating everywhere, and everyone in the crew has snake heads now that are bobbing around and oozing with slime, and the wig warden yells out, "Come forth, foul Beelzebub, lest the stale sorcery of Lipowitz the necromancer be permitted to promulgate in perpetuity." And now it feels like Dennis has come alive on my head and is turning against me, ripping apart in a seam across the crown of my noggin and pulling my skull open along with it, and the hairs of the wig are crawling into the hole in the top of my head, and I can't move, and I'm drifting off into the darkness, and as I'm fading away, I hear Unky Lorne say, "Begone, ye droll discarnate demons, to the other side of the chortle portal, and joust with thine jests until one of ye are cast beyond the crest of the humor horizon, and are made one with the great whimsicality." I look down and see that my own body and clothes are crumpled around me on the floor, and when I go to lift up my hand, it's more like a big, hairy, red talon sort of thing, and I feel a heavy beating of wings behind me, and then everything goes black. And maybe that sounds crazy, but that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
This audio edition of Unstoppable Farce, the Mitch Maloney story, was made possible by the Seventh Reformed Church of Latter-day Witnesses, the Bleepers.